Happy Alaska Startup Week. Happy winter, everybody. Joe Morrison with the 49SAF Pod coming back to you. So, we're talking about pitching today. We're finishing up our discussion with the Pitchfest winners. And this is really pertinent because we're starting off our programming for Alaska Startup Week with a discussion of pitching. November 13th, noon, Suite 700 at City Hall. It's a brown bag lunch. We're going to host Pitching 101. We do this a couple times every year. And it's a great opportunity to come in a no-stress, relaxed environment to just try to get some of the rust out of your pitch. Please come. Please join us. Bring your lunch if you've got it. 7th floor, City Hall on Tuesday at noon. And then on Thursday, the 15th, we've got two events. At 9 a.m., myself and Rachel Miller of Alaska Pacific University will be talking about the co-founder process, best practices, and awkward conversations. Some new emerging thinking in entrepreneurial ecosystems is that the co-founder relationship is best handled as a process. So we're going to discuss that, and we're going to discuss when it makes sense to find a co-founder, when it makes sense to be solo, and all the tricky questions you have to answer and the best practices you can pursue to build a lasting relationship. And then that evening, it is the first event of Alaska Angel Conference 2019. This is a new fund that we're trying to stand up in 2019, where 20 to 40 angel investors put together $100,000 to $200,000 to invest in an Alaska company. It takes place over a disciplined process of a couple months. And so we're having our first event, and it's entitled For Entrepreneurs Raising Angel Capital. It takes place at 5:30 at the Boardroom's new location on First Avenue, so Ship Creek-ish downtown. And the important thing about this is whether you're an investor or you're an entrepreneur, find out a little bit if angel capital is right for you. So it's the best way to get introduced to the concept of angel investing. And some entrepreneurs need angel money. Many entrepreneurs, most entrepreneurs don't. Many investors or people who could be angels are missing out on an asset class, and many shouldn't be involved in it. So come learn more. We're going to have that discussion facilitated by John Seacrest of the Seattle Angel Conference. John has run this process well over a dozen times in different markets. He's working in San Diego, Seattle, and Kelowna, British Columbia. And of course, we're bringing him to Alaska for 2019. If you can come a little early, we start at 5:30, but there will be an open house event at the Boardroom's new location somewhere on the 700 block. I think it's 721 First Avenue. And then November 16th, to close out Startup Week in Anchorage, we have two events the evening of November 16th. 5 to 6:30 p.m., there will be a fireside talk between Kevin Croy and Bob Crimmins. Kevin is one of the partners at 9 Mile Labs, and he has done probably over 80 seed stage transactions with his partners in his early stage VC firm. He's also a member of the 49SAF Advisory Committee, so we're going to hear from him and have an informal dinner. There's a cost to that. That's $25. And then at 6:30, we're going to have Startup Poker 2.0. There's only 40 seats available. We really want to see startups, investors, and the ecosystem come out to just have an informal time, relax. There's no cost to play poker. And I'll give you a hint. There's some prize support from Alaska Airlines. So it's well worth your time to see if you can play poker with us at 6:30. So those events both happen on the second floor of Willowa. All right, that's it. I've talked a bundle. Let's move on. Let's hear from our Pitchfest winners, who I hope to see all over the place, as well as many of you at Alaska Startup Week. Talk a little bit about pitching. So you three are the winners of Pitchfest. We held that at the end of August as part of the Accelerate Alaska competition. And Keith is the winner for an existing concept. Orion is the winner for a new concept. And Alexa is the People's Choice Award. It's pretty cool. So I think my question to you is, why is it important to be a good pitch person? The two don't necessarily correlate. I struggle with it a little bit because one's ability to pitch and talk to other people well does not necessarily equate to your ability to run a business or build a product, right? I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true, and definitely something I've had to work at. I mean, being able to explain your business to somebody else, and it kind of is salesmanship, which is something I struggled with. You know, I don't have the salesman personality or outgoing personality that I love to run up and talk to everybody, and can be really excited about, and using those techniques that some people have, and just the personalities that some people have that are just great at it. I did not start with that, nor do I think I have that now, but just working on it, pitching a lot, practicing a lot, finding mentors that can help me and, give me that outside perspective. Because what I think is great and makes sense to me, I found, doesn't always translate. I'm so deep into the technology side of it and how things are working and flowing that to pitch to somebody that has no idea what I'm talking about, I need to step back a little bit. I need to roll back and just kind of hit the wave tops and give them the full overall picture, not too narrow and in depth. So being able to pitch and explain people the company, how we can improve, their systems, improve their lives. Obviously very important for just selling the system to the individual shops. If you're looking for investors or just you're looking to tell people about what you do, just that quick 30-second, elevator pitch, but just elevator, the 30-second explanation of your company. So you can tell people who, just in passing, not that they, are interested in, you're not pitching to them or looking for anything from them, but, they might know somebody or have a network or a connection that they can introduce you to. So just being able to explain it quickly to somebody and they can grasp it and, move forward with that, whether they have somebody that, they introduce you to or not, or just think about it and maybe call you later with somebody.
Totally. I would agree with Keith. I think that pitching is probably, at least for me, the hardest and the most important and rewarding thing that I've had to do. It's so hard. Like even in the beginning of this conversation, when you asked me to explain the business, it's like, well, where do you even start? Because as a business owner, you know way too much about your company and what you're doing and where you're headed. And nobody's going to follow along if you really start to open up and talk about everything. So you really, I think as you go further along with it, you have to definitely narrow down those important pieces of information that's going to help people get the general concept, but not say too much. And like Keith was saying, I'm not a salesperson at heart by any means, but I've definitely learned how to, I'm learning how to kind of get the important pieces out so people are interested, but not overwhelmed with what you have going on.
I think that my colleagues here have pretty much covered it. I would just say that, we're storytellers, and I think that it's important to, if you want to change the future, to be able to articulate a story that helps people understand how the future is going to change. And so, I think basically everything that they said, and I just double down on it.
So it sounds like if you had a piece of advice, Orion, you're saying tell a story.
Yeah, I think that is what a pitch is. I think that it's a story of how you see the world changing and how you're going to intersect that change. I think that, that is to say, I wouldn't go on forever with, I think that following, how would I say this? I think we're storytellers, which means we need to paint an exciting vision inside of someone's head. But I think that those pitches are best done by the book. And I think if you look at successful pitches, they typically will share with you like market, product market fit, where's the disruption? How are you going to be profitable in that space? What's your team look like, right? What's the competitive landscape look like? I think if you sit down and actually look at a business pitch outline and hit all those points, but also weave together some sort of story into it, I think you can be really successful with your pitches.
So I'm looking for your guidance, Keith and Alexis. So we've got Orion's guidance. The truth is kind of the way the entrepreneurial ecosystems work is pitches at the early stage are really key. And that's kind of where a lot of people start these days. So what's your one piece of advice for pitching?
For me, I like to connect the problem with the audience, no matter who it is, just whether, I'm pitching to somebody or just telling them about it, connecting them to the problem I'm solving. If I if they don't really connect to the problem, or you just start telling them information, they're like, how does this pertain to me? And how does it work? But so I like when I start, have you ever waited in line, to drive through? Like you're sat at McDonald's just waiting for your food, or especially the coffee lines. Like you're waiting for like 20 minutes in a coffee line, and people, especially up here with the coffee, kind of can already relate, and they like, oh yeah, I've waited in line, and then I can kind of give them that quick, oh, well, our software, helps cut down the lines and gets you your coffee quicker, better quality, and they're like, oh man, that's sweet. So just connecting with them, so they see, oh yeah, I experienced that problem, I have that problem, and you have something that can solve that, and that gets them really, to internalize what I'm trying to explain to them.
Yeah, so for Keith, me, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say to Keith, I think you're, it's like you have to shake people sometimes and wake them up, because it's like people are sort of in this like state of everything's normal, and then you sort of point things out. I like how you put that.
Mm-hmm. I would say it's just about doing it often and competing against yourself, because at least for me, I honestly get really anxious going on stage and talking to a bunch of people. And if I start to think, like, especially at Pitchfest, listening to everybody else go ahead of me and then having to do my pitch following up like 10 other people, it really threw me off. But if you're just focused on competing against yourself and you take every opportunity that gets presented to you as far as pitching goes, I think that'll provide you with the chance to really narrow it down and figure out your story, because it's so hard to initially just kind of make a pitch that's going to be perfect. Like every time I have to present my story, I'm always changing and always learning from the mistakes from the previous pitch and narrowing down what's really going to tell that story in the right way. Like Keith and Oren were saying, just like narrow it down and kind of shake them into believing and hopping on board with you, because that's what pitching is about.
Well, I want to take this opportunity before we wrap up to ask one tough question, and then I'll give you guys an opportunity to do final thoughts. So the tough question is actually something that Orion, maybe it's easy, I don't know, but I'd like you all to address it. It's something Orion brought up twice, which is product market fit. So we have, I don't want to say jargon, but we've got stuff. Right? The startup people have stuff, and pitching's part of the culture, and product market fit and focusing on the right product market fit is part of the job of an early stage company. Orion, help me out. What's product market fit? I might not know.
Product market fit is if people are going to buy your product.
So tell us more. Help me understand it. Like, how do you pursue it? What do you do to make sure it's there and appropriate?
I mean, I think there's a few different ways. If you have a ton of money and you're like General Electric and you're going to launch, a brand of compete with Cheerios, then you spend, a couple $1,000,000. You hire a product market fit firm that'll do user testing and analyze you across all these focus groups, blah, 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 to figure out if your, Cheerios 2.0 is going to sell. The way that startups do it is generally you create an MVP, which is minimum viable product, something that is compartmentalizable, that contains the minimum viable, means sort of valuableness product to what you're trying to explore, and then find a small group of people in the marketplace that are going to be interested in it, and then start iterating. I mean, I think that by and large, if you find once you release something to the marketplace, it will respond. 99% of the time, it's going to respond negatively, because marketplaces, generally aren't going to like whatever you produce the first time. And so part of finding that fit is getting the response from the market and then iterating until the market likes what you have. And if there's a kernel of truth to what you're exploring and you're willing to pivot a little bit and listen to your customers, then you can kind of create that product market fit in a bootstrapped fashion without spending the millions of dollars on professional firms that will help you take something to market. Anyway, that's how I think of it, Joe. How do you think that is how you would think of it?
I think you explained it better than I ever could have. And, part of the reason these the fun thing about this podcast is getting different learning and insights from all kinds of people. So I really appreciate that, Ryan. Keith, Alexa, product market fit adventures, life with the product market fit. How has this affected you?
I don't think I am going to be much help in this area because truthfully, it's something we're trying to narrow down right now. Like I originally came out with our product saying we're going to appeal to every trending fad diet out there. We're going to get into the medical industry and start this whole preventative lifestyle diet program. And then we're going to appeal to just the trendy foodies that want to eat the new hip snack product, which I think wasn't a bad way to initially start something out. But we've kind of came to the point where we're like, we really need to narrow down who we're going to target in the future. And something I've come to realize is you can always have that main target. And then from there, you'll get kind of sub-targets from that. But there's definitely a need to be pointed at that one target audience or target market, which is something we're trying to narrow down right now.
We had a bit of a journey with our product market fit in the beginning when I first, started designing up what I thought, this app or this technology could do. I immediately started contacting coffee shop owners, was telling them, hey, this is what I'm looking at doing. These are kind of, rough wire frames of what we're looking for, just a sketch of what a app screen might look like for the customer, for their baristas. And I was like, would you use this? What don't you like? What do you like? What would you, like to see? What could we add, take away? And immediately just started getting this out into the hands of the people who would use it. I didn't have a product. I literally had Microsoft Paint rectangles drawn, I was getting it out there as early as possible, seeing how I could make this the product they wanted, that they would use, that they would buy. So immediately was doing that. As Orion talked about, we ended up creating an MVP, just exactly what he talked about, the minimum that we could for the cheapest amount we could, and it still work and function properly and, smooth enough for people to use. Got that out there, gotten that in people's hands, immediately started getting feedback and really making a partnership with those people who used it. You have to appreciate them. They are early adopters. They're the ones going against kind of the norm and using your product. And if they're willing to give you feedback on it, even better. So you really have to value those people, appreciate them, internalize what they're saying, and not all the feedback you're going to have to jump on and use. It might not be in line with where you're going, but still appreciate it that the person took the time to use it, to write you back. So we internalized a lot of that, and that's exactly how we've been moving forward, is off of the feedback of our partner shops. They are our partner shops. We partner them as close as possible because they're the ones on the front line using this every day with the customer. So just bringing that in and moving forward off of what they have to say.
I think one of the interesting things about the discussion around product market fit is that, Alexa, you were kind of forced to do it. Like your entrepreneurial journey made you do it. Like you kind of went down a funnel, and right now you're identifying your target, literally you're identifying your target market, and you're probably integrating your product, which is, as far as I know, a healthy donut, right? Am I crazy?
You're right.
Okay. Phew. Bullet dodged. Second bullet dodged. But, you're actually doing that, right? You found the right product, you're testing it in the market, and you've kind of narrowed down your scope to deliver that to the market to the best extent you can. And then you get the feedback and you iterate, like Ryan said. Pretty darn nifty. Any advice you want to give? Generally the listeners of this podcast are aspiring Alaska entrepreneurs or Alaska ecosystem community members. Anything you want to talk about, whether it's, let's try this, something you can give the community and an ask you have for the community, or your final thought. Just go ahead. Keith, why don't you start?
All righty. My advice to early entrepreneurs is just getting your product, your idea, your thing out there as soon as possible, not holding it in and waiting for it to be perfect or anything. Just sitting down, putting the time in, whatever it is, however vague or specific it is, just putting it down on some paper, writing it up, drawing it, whatever it is, and getting it out there. It doesn't have to be a product. It doesn't have to be a finalized anything. Just get it out there. Even just family, friends, of course, they're going to give you, more positive feedback. But going out there and finding people, some neutral parties, maybe mentors, other entrepreneurs are usually great at that as well, because we've had experiences. We can kind of help you along and give you some more neutral feedback as well. And then as I talked about earlier, getting out there to the market that would actually use this, even with just drawings, and saying, hey, would this be something you might be interested in using, and getting their feedback, just getting it out as soon as possible. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Don't build or make the entire, what you think is a finalized product before you get it out there and really see how the market's going to take it.
I would fully agree with what Keith has to say. Like, it's never going to be perfect before you ask people what they think of it and get their response. And a lot of people struggle with like, oh, it's not ready yet. It's not done. I'm not ready yet. The point in my life isn't exactly right to be doing this. Or there's so many excuses you can come up with not to do something. And all it takes is putting it out there to really see if anybody's going to bite. And from there, once you do make the commitment and you do it and you put it out there, just take it one day at a time. Like, it's easy to get overwhelmed with everything you want to do and everything you have going and a busy schedule. But if you take it one day at a time, it really isn't that hard, and you're constantly learning and improving yourself, and the future will get easier and you will get better and more skilled in what you're doing.
I would, again, I have to agree with my colleagues on everything they said. And since we're talking to entrepreneurs, I would just say that ideas are cheap, action's expensive. And one thing I see a lot of times is people spending a lot of time trying to protect their ideas. And I would say, don't worry about that. Non-competes, being secretive, don't worry about it. I would go out and share your concept and do it. Take the action. Failure is just part of the game, and it's okay. And I hope that if anyone's listening, that they have some thoughts about doing something, that they go out and do it.
I love that quote. I think that being secretive about your ideas is a mindset of scarcity. And if you're a true entrepreneur, you have ideas every week. Like, it doesn't matter if somebody else hears about your idea and takes it, you'll have another one.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
I agree with that too. From the tech side as well. People think, oh, well, tech's different. Like, you got to be real secretive and hide it. Don't waste too much time on stuff like that. Of course, secure your IP like we did if that's the main center core of it, but don't over exaggerate that people are going to steal it and really run away with your idea. It's the actions, it's the execution, not just the idea.
Right. So to sum up, it sounds like ship your product, get it out there, be a little embarrassed by it. Don't be too embarrassed by it, but be ready to be a little embarrassed by it. And also get yourself out there, get your concepts out there, share your ideas so that you can get feedback and to start gaining some traction, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
All right. Well, I want to thank our Pitchfest winners for joining us on the 49SAF pod. Thanks to our listeners for listening as well. Alaska Startup Week is coming up. I think it's like November 8th through the 16th. I'm guessing you can find out more information at alaska.startupweek.co or just Google Alaska Startup Week. All kinds of events and workshops and things will be held, and hope to see some of you guys there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Joe.
No problem. And after this podcast, the truth is, dear listeners, Keith, Orion, Alexa, and I are going to listen to the beautiful sounds of early Jessica Simpson music.